Hello and welcome to episode 326 of the official EstablishTheRun.com podcast. My name is Adam Levitan. As always, joined by Evan Silva. The playoffs are here. Playoffs, baby. Evan, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. I wanted to give a big shout out to the media team, the social media team, the true tech lords for the most recent video. You could look at it on Adam Levitan's Twitter. It's really funny. I mean, it is so good. I watched it like 5 times. It's really good. Those guys are super, super talented, and try to figure out who they are and give them a follow and tell them they're doing a great job.
Yeah, incredible job by the video team all year. Been so many funny things. I know Steven had a hard time fitting everything funny that happened into 2 minutes and 20 seconds. So yeah, I mean, if you guys haven't, if you're on Twitter, you can actually go to somebody's profile, me or Establish the Run or Evan or whatever, just click on media and you'll scroll through and you'll only see pictures and videos. Hopefully you can find the videos there easier because, man, there's been so many funny ones. It's really been amazing. Anyways, love the playoffs, man. A little bit of a break for us, not in terms of the amount of content that we're doing, but just the amount of games to look at and amount of players to evaluate and amount of injury situations to look at obviously goes way, way, way down. So it is a bit of a break, but allows us to focus more on each team. That's what we're going to do today. We're going to go team by team through each playoff team. Now, we're not going to really look ahead too much. We're not going to talk matchups. We're not going to talk DFS. We're saving all that stuff for the DFS shows coming up later this week for subscribers. Here, we're going to look back a little bit, talk about usage, do the things that we normally do on the team by team podcast. The show is brought to you by our friends at PrizePicks.com. If your season-long league is over, you're looking to fire off some props. We, of course, will have some props that we bet on DraftKings, FanDuel, etc. But if you're not in a legal state, New York, California, Texas, you can bet props on PrizePicks, legal and regulated. If you want to give them a try this week, they do have a 100% instant deposit bonus up to $100. Use promo code ETR to get the best deal, or use the link in the show notes. Again, promo code ETR at prizepicks.com for the instant deposit bonus and the best deal. All right, Evan, let's start here with the NFC. We can start with the Arizona Cardinals. Running back issue was interesting because I thought James Conner was going to be a great play. I got scared off it after we had no reporting from Schefter or even Rap Sheet or anyone that James Conner was going to play. We knew Chase Edmonds wasn't. James Conner came in and looked good, but then he left again pretty late. Jonathan Ward left with a knee issue. They're a 4-point dog at the Rams this week. Do not expect DeAndre Hopkins back for this game. One thing I got to say on the Cardinals, man, this Zach Ertz thing, I mean, it's not going away. Kyler Murray loves throwing the ball to Zach Ertz, period. I mean, 10 more targets for Zach Ertz in that Week 18 game. What did you see out of the Cardinals in Week
Zach
18?
Ertz, poster child for the horizontal raid. I mean, could there be a better fit for the horizontal raid than Zach Ertz? Zach Ertz played 71 of 77 snaps last week against Seattle. That was a game that the Cardinals, of course, took very seriously over his last 4 target counts of 10, 9, 13, 11. He's played over 90% of the Cardinal snaps in each of their last 3 games. So you're right. He's going to continue to get absolutely fed with targets, not necessarily high value targets, but he's getting so many of them that, I mean, they culminate in a lot of value. DeAndre Hopkins, Schefter reported that January 30th would be his optimal return date. That's a ways away. We're doing this on Tuesday, the 11th. That's 19 days away. That would be the NFC Championship game. So DeAndre Hopkins is not going to be back really anytime soon. Rondale Moore missed week 16 through 18 with an ankle injury. It sounds like he's going to be due back here, but I also think that he's not necessarily going to move out of that number 4 receiver role. That's something that we're going to talk about later in the week, our expectations for the depth chart in Arizona, because Antoine Wesley has been doing the DeAndre Hopkins stuff. AJ Green is in there. Zach Ertz, of course, is getting all these targets. Christian Kirk is going to continue to play a ton. Yeah, this running back situation is something that we're going to have to parse out with. Yeah, I mean, James Conner has been battling ankle, heel, and now rib injuries. Chase Edmonds has battled ankle, toe, and rib injuries. He did not play last week. You mentioned the injury to Jonathan Ward. Benjamin stepped in against Seattle, played 25 snaps, 11 touches. We're going to have to try to figure that out as the week progresses.
I kind of think that Chase Edmonds was held out. This wasn't like a huge game for the Cardinals. They played it like it was a huge game, but maybe they let Chase Edmonds sit out a little bit to get him ready for the playoffs. I kind of suspect that Chase Edmonds will be back, but we'll know more about that Wednesday, Thursday. Let's go to Dallas. So shockingly, Dallas tried in this game. And not only did they try, but Dak Prescott went nuclear. 5 touchdown passes, 294 pass yards. I'm curious what you thought of Cedric Wilson, because, this Cedric Wilson stuff is really cheap in fantasy tournaments for the playoffs. He went 5, 119, 2. Lamb and Amari have not separated massively in terms of targets over the last, 7, 8 weeks. Dalton Schultz pops up for 8 or 9 at times, and we can talk about Blake Jarwin coming back, but Cedric Wilson pops up at times. Other note I have on Dallas is that Tony Pollard sat out this game, but I kind of think he'll be a full go for the playoffs. They're just so much better when they have Tony Pollard eating into the Zeke stuff. What you see out of Dallas's game on Saturday night?
Yeah, on the betting show, kept it running hot with the overs. Got the over for the 268.5 passing yards for Patrick Mahomes, but bricked this under so bad. Philly against Dallas. The over hit by halftime. The Cowboys went, full foot to the gas, and this was, pretty embarrassing. But either way, I one thing I came away, and I understand that the Eagles were playing a lot of backups in the game, but Dak looked so sharp. Just his ball placement, throwing the ball into tight windows, playing with a lot of confidence. And I think, he's played really well in 2 of the final 3 games. Hopefully he can carry that momentum over into the playoffs. But I was really impressed with his poise and where he was placing the ball in that game. He was on fire against Philadelphia. And again, I understand that the opponent was, resting starters, but I really came away impressed with him. Yes, Cedric Wilson is now the Cowboys' main slot receiver. Amari Cooper and CeeDee Lamb are playing outside. Blake Jarwin did come back from that hip injury. He's been sidelined by since week 8, but he was way behind Dalton Schultz. I don't know. He'll be somebody that we talk about as a potential play in the playoffs and playoff DFS. And then Tony Pollard rested in week 18. I think he's going to be fully back for the first round of the playoffs, where Dallas is a 3-point favorite at home against San Francisco.
Yeah, I don't think Blake Jarwin's really an option, but Blake Jarwin does eat into Dalton Schultz at least a little bit, and so, you're going to see it in projections a little bit. Like, Dalton Schultz isn't going to look as good because if he even loses 5 or 10 routes in a game, that's a lot. Obviously, Dalton Schultz needs all the volume he can get given his role. Let's go to Green Bay. So Green Bay played this game mostly to win. Aaron Rodgers played a lot of this game. MVS left early with a back issue. We'll see on his status. Aaron Jones did rest. But yeah, just based on path and getting the bye, current Super Bowl favorite is the Green Bay Packers, around plus 380 or so. I'm not sure we can have many takeaways here from this Green Bay performance, but what do you see out of them in week 18?
Yeah, not a ton of takeaways here. I think it was really promising, though, that David Bakhtiari, he made his season debut against the Lions. He got in 40% of the snaps. Obviously, they were just easing him in. He played essentially a half. But I think that was a positive development for them. Obviously, they have the first round bye, so now he's going to get another week to rest. Mm-hmm. Randall Cobb is expected back after the bye week. He had core muscle surgery early on. He has been out since week 12. Allen Lazard has been balling. Yeah. Allen Lazard has been playing really, really good football for an extended period now. Over his last 5 games, Allen Lazard has 21 catches on 28 targets for 290 yards and 5 touchdowns. Now, when Cobb comes back, that could definitely eat into his opportunities. We'll have to see if MVS's back injury was precautionary. I sort of suspect that it was, but we're going to find out more about that as the week progresses. And then on the defensive side, it looks like the Packers are going to get back Zadarius Smith. to round out their pass rush trio with Rashawn Gary, finished the season with 9.5 sacks. Preston Smith finished the season with 9. They've got Kenny Clark back. They should get Jair Alexander back. They're probably the favorites in the NFC to go to the Super Bowl.
Yeah. Oh, without a doubt. I mean, especially when you factor in that they have the bye. I mean, they're the favorites to win the Super Bowl for sure. Yeah. I was shocked that A.J. Dillon played with the Jordan Love group. And, the Patrick Taylor play in DFS was bad, got lucky as he got a touchdown late. He ended up with, 13, 12, 14 points or something like that. But it was lucky because I thought they valued A.J. Dillon more. Like, to leave him out there with the Jordan Love group shocked me. And I don't know if that means something for Aaron Jones' usage in the playoffs. I still think it'll be a split, but I think there's at least some doubt in my mind now that, hey, when the chips are down in the playoffs, they're going to go to more Aaron Jones. But we'll see. Rams. This Cam Akers thing is crazy, man. Like 6 months after tearing his Achilles, comes back, plays 13 out of 65 snaps, handles 19% of the running back carries, 8 routes on 38 Matthew Stafford dropbacks. And now they say they want to give him more work. I mean, I think Sony Michel has been fine for them. I get that he hasn't been explosive or had huge games. I think he's been fine. But then mixing in Cam Akers is going to muddle the situation a lot. I'm curious what you thought of Cam Akers' return and anything else on the Rams.
Cam Akers had 13 yards on 8 touches.
Yep.
So I didn't really have any great, positive takeaways. Maybe they love the guy and they want to get him the run. I mean, he only played 20% of the snaps. Sony Michel still played 80%. Sony Michel was also very inefficient, 22 touches for 49 yards. No, I mean, I didn't see anything in the game that would indicate, oh yeah, you got to get Cam Akers the rock more.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, the whole offense was, at least the run game was really inefficient for sure. I think from Sony's perspective though, just there were games he was playing 100% of the snaps. So now if it's going to be 80, if it's going to be 70, that's going to be a hit for him in fantasy. But yeah, obviously a lot can happen with Cam Akers for sure. I mean, he may not even be 100%. Maybe the coaches realize that. Yeah.
Against San Francisco, Jalen Ramsey wound up matching up a lot with Debo, and Debo was still awesome.
Yeah,
and I know we're not talking about matchups here, but one situation to monitor as the week progresses is that the Rams at safety, Jordan Fuller, who is their team captain, green dot play caller, has played 93% of the snaps this year. He's done for the playoffs with an ankle injury. And then their other safety, Taylor Rapp, is in the concussion protocol. He's played 96% of the Rams' offensive or defensive snaps this year. So something to keep in mind as the week progresses.
Let's go to the Eagles. And so Eagles basically rested their whole team. I mean, they basically had a bye week. They're going to get everybody back. Miles Sanders, Jordan Howard, I think Boston Scott, Dallas Goedert. I mean, everybody back. And they'll need all hands on deck for this road game in Tampa. Eagles ended up as the NFC's number 7 seed. Obviously, we don't have anything to evaluate on week 18. I would just say that getting Miles Sanders back gives them a dimension in the run game, which they need. I'm not sure they'll still be able to run the ball on Tampa, though. We can talk more about that on the DFS show. But yeah, anything on the Eagles as they get set for the playoffs.
Yeah, it looks like they're going to have their full backfield intact, assuming that Miles Sanders returns. I'm not so sure that it's 100%. On Monday, Nick Sirianni said that he's hopeful that Miles Sanders will be back from the broken hand. But we'll have to see. Jordan Howard, Boston Scott, they should both be back from the COVID list. And then they've got Kenny Gainwell and Jason Huntley as well. I think that they're, if Miles Sanders comes back, they're going to have 5 available backs. Of course, they're not all going to be active on game day, but their full backfield will be intact. Oh, I hit up Jimmy Kempski, a longtime Eagles beat writer, to ask him about the health status of Jalen Hurts' ankle. And he said that he believes that Jalen Hurts will be healthy enough for them to implement design runs into the game plan. So it sounds like Jimmy believes that he's going to be, 90% or better.
Yeah. And they're going to need Jalen Hurts to throw the ball. I mean, if you're going to beat the Bucs, you need to be able to throw the ball effectively. They've actually played, I forget what week that was. It was like an island game though. And I mean, they got down 28-7. I mean, Jalen Hurts had 90 passing yards, got a bunch of garbage time stuff in, but it was not good when the Eagles and Bucs played earlier this year. Obviously different Bucs team now, which we'll talk about here in a second. I know, I'm interrupting the video. Wah. But if you're enjoying this video and want to see more fantasy football and DFS content like it, please just take 2 seconds, hit the subscribe button, hit the thumbs up button. Really does go a long way for us, and we'd appreciate it. Thank you for watching, and now back to the show. 49ers. I mean, same story with Eli Mitchell. I mean, Eli Mitchell was not good in fantasy, but over the last 2 weeks, Eli Mitchell, 44 touches, Jermichael Hasty, 4, Jeff Wilson, 0. I mean, it's all Eli Mitchell's backfield. Really good win, though, for San Francisco to make the playoffs. Get the win against the Rams. What do you see out of the 49ers and Jimmy G's return to action?
So as the 49ers look to avoid Jalen Ramsey for most of the game, and you saw that under hit for George Kittle, right?
Yep.
Jaywan Jennings, their big slot, or he's not really a slot. He's like a Kendrick Bourne type possession receiver. He had like a breakout game. He went 6 for 94 and 2 touchdowns. He'll be a guy that we'll probably be discussing at least a little bit in playoff DFS. Although I haven't looked at any salaries yet. One thing to keep in mind is the 49ers on the offensive line. They're really weak on the right side of their offensive line. They'll be going up against Dallas. That'll be something to keep in mind. But Eli Mitchell, didn't have, a big game, but still this usage, I mean, his touch counts over his last 5, 21, 23, 25, 32, 27. They're going to keep feeding him, I think.
Yeah. I'm a bit disappointed that San Francisco and Dallas are playing each other in this wild card game. I like both those teams.
Me too.
I actually think that both of them, you can make a case, are better than the Rams or the Cardinals, who are also playing each other, of course. And obviously, I think both are better than the Eagles. So, yeah. But it's going to be a really good game, I think, between Dallas and the 49ers.
Yeah. As someone who has Super Bowl futures on both of these teams, for them to be playing in the first round really sucks.
Unlucky. Last NFC team is the Tampa Bay Bucks. So, when you're out there and you're not playing with Chris Godwin, you don't have Antonio Brown, it's just different, man. One thing I'll say, though, is that it condenses a lot around Mike Evans and Rob Gronkowski, and we saw that in Week 18. So when you can get Tom Brady looking condensed, I think it's really, really interesting. Tyler Johnson was out there for 35 routes out of 38 Tom Brady dropbacks, whatever. He has proven that he can earn targets at a really high rate. Brashad Perriman was out there for 28. Cyril Grayson only ran 4 routes, pulled his hamstring. I mean, it's kind of a mess. I will say they're getting reinforcements, though. Leonard Fournette, expected back. JPP, expected back. Shaq Barrett, expected back. So, these are very important pieces, and I think the Bucks, when healthy, have a chance to make a real run here and play much better than they have. If you looked at our playoff rankings, many of you are likely in shock because Leonard Fournette is our number 1 overall player. For fantasy, it's because we have the Bucks projected for among the most games played. And obviously without Ronald Jones, Leonard Fournette, we think could play roughly 100% of the snaps out here in these games, pass down roll and early down roll. But anyways, go ahead on the Bucks because we saw them also try, somewhat surprisingly, pretty hard in their Week 18 game.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have a whole lot. You kind of covered all the bases there. In terms of I have a bunch of notes on this game, but you hit every single one. But the Bucks Eagles, I think that if you look at it on paper and compare it to the other wild card games, I think it might have the most shootout potential of any of them. But that's something that we'll talk about later in the week. I think that we'll talk about why later in the week.
Yeah. I'd say that Mike Evans appears over whatever hamstring issue or whatever he had going on before because they let him play almost every snap in this game. Obviously, natural born touchdown scored, 2 more touchdowns for Mike Evans, and they did force Gronk the incentive stuff. They got Gronk paid $1 million by getting him to 7 catches, 137 yards in this game. He needed 7 for 85, ends up with 7 for 137. All right, let's go to the AFC. Bills. A couple things on the Bills. First, Devin Singletary. I mean, I know he got there late. I mean, it wasn't looking great for Devin Singletary. He gets there late with 2 fourth-quarter touchdowns against the Jets, but he's just so clearly their guy now. And when there's weather, and it's going to be 6 degrees or something on Saturday night for their playoff game. When there's weather, they've been way more run heavy. Now, maybe that'll change if they get into the playoffs and they play better teams, but Devin Singletary last 4 weeks has 84 touches. Zach Moss has 16. Matt Breida has 1. What'd you see out of the Bills Week 18 game?
Yeah, I mean, they wound up wrapping up the AFC East, smashed the Jets as expected. Patriots lost to the Dolphins. Devin Singletary last 4 games, 21 touch average, 6 all-purpose touchdowns. That touchdown number is probably a regression stat, but I'm with you that, I mean, he's clearly taken the reins in the backfield. I mean, 21 touches as an average over his last 4, that's pretty rock solid for him. And he's performed really well. So there's no real reason that you would expect them to turn away from him. Gabe Davis, 14 targets in this one, and he had 3 catches. He did. The good news is that he did operate as their number 1 in terms of both snaps and routes run among their wide receiver core. Steph Diggs, obviously, a very close number 2. Cole Beasley was the 3, and then Isaiah McKenzie was the 4. This was with Emmanuel Sanders sidelined. Dawson Knox is literally the only tight end that they play anymore. So he's out there almost every single snap. Josh Allen rushing over his last 5 games. He's averaging almost 70 rushing yards per game, and he scored 3 rushing touchdowns. And I think they're going to continue to run him.
I don't know if Emmanuel Sanders is going to be back or not. I do know that 3 catches on 14 targets for Gabe Davis is just unacceptable and should be way better. Difficult matchup here against New England in very cold weather on Saturday night. But yeah, I'll have an eye on Manny's status for sure. Bengals rested in Week 18. Shout out to the Bengals, man. I mean, they got a clean run out because they rested in Week 18 and they end up with a home game to start their playoffs against the Raiders. I mean, it couldn't have gone much better for the Bengals. Not only do they have a home game against the Raiders, but there's a chance, a pretty good chance actually, if they can beat the Raiders at home, their next game will be against the Titans. And the Titans I think are good. I probably think they're a little better than Evan does, but they're still a weak number 1 seed. If you ranked all the number 1 seeds of all time, Tennessee would be at the bottom for sure. And so Cincinnati has a chance, man. Cincinnati has a legit chance to go to the AFC Championship game, to go to the Super Bowl. Shout out to them. They've just played so much better lately. Obviously rested in Week 18, but anything on Cincy heading into the playoffs?
So now the Titans are getting back the big dog. They're getting back A.J. Brown. They're getting, Julio Jones scores a touchdown. And now you're jumping on the bandwagon, huh? That's how convenient. How convenient. No, but I think one thing that's interesting concerning the Bengals in the wild card round against the Raiders just had to defend 88 offensive plays by the Chargers in an overtime game on Sunday night, the last game of the week. And now they're playing, I think this is the first game of the week. The wild card round, right? Or the second? I believe
you're right. I believe so. Yep.
Yeah. It's Saturday's earliest game.
Yep.
So not only, the Bengals really got a solid run out here. And they have, the Bengals just rested their starters in Week 18. So they have a significant rest advantage going into this game against the Raiders. They're going to be getting back Joe Mixon from the COVID list in all likelihood. Shout out to you for predicting that Samaje Perine wouldn't even get used. And he had 0 offensive snaps in Week 18. I thought that they maybe would reward him for playing this role player role where he, never got the ball, and they would, maybe give him 20 touches. They didn't play him at all on offense. He played all 15 of his snaps on special teams. Yeah,
really weird. I thought that was in the range of outcomes, and that's why we had him docked pretty hard. But he was 10% owned in cash. A lot of people played Samaje Perine in the game. They clearly think that he's important to the team, although letting him play 15 special team snaps doesn't seem to make a lot of sense either. So who knows there?
Yeah. Go ahead. The Bengals had a ton of dudes hit the COVID list ahead of that Week 18 game. Critical guys, 3 of their best defensive linemen, Ogunjobi, Trey Hendrickson, PJ Hill, all those guys are going to be back. And the Raiders offensive line is one that you can exploit, and that can really rattle Derek Carr. We'll be talking about that in the matchups column and on Friday or Thursday, whenever we're going to do our show. Chiefs have a lot of injuries going on.
Tyreek Hill hurt his heel in warmups before that game on Saturday. He barely played. Darrell Williams is expected back for the playoffs, but has a toe issue. We'll see on Clyde Edwards Allaire, by the way, Tyreek, I think will be back for the playoff game, but there's always some concern there. I'll say this, man, like it used to be so much more condensed, and maybe this is in my head, and when all the guys are healthy, it'll go back to just Mahomes only throws at Tyreek and Kelsey. But I mean, Pringle has played fine, and Hardman had a big game here, and they've thrown to Robinson, they've thrown to McKinnon. I mean, it's been way more spread out than it has been normally. Maybe in the playoffs that changes. What do you think about Kansas City's performance in Week 18 as they head into the playoffs?
No, I think that's a very fair observation. They've played, 3 different running backs in the absence of CEH. Yeah. McKinnon got 8 touches last week. Derek Gore got 7 touches. Obviously, that was a product of the injury to Darrell Williams. But, I mean, they've used a bunch of guys. And it sounds like CEH, I don't know, Andy Reid said he's hopeful that CEH will practice. He did not say he's hopeful that CEH will play in this game. I'm skeptical that he's going to play, but, that's something that we're not going to know until maybe Thursday or Friday.
Vegas. I mean, what a wild scene out there. I'll say this, and I want to make this point just generally about the playoffs too. Like, this was obviously essentially a playoff game between the Chargers and Raiders. Sometimes for some teams, when their chips are all down, they like condense. So Josh Jacobs gets 26 carries in this game. Jalen Richard gets 2. Like, they didn't even use anybody else. And so, I think that it's something to think through. Like, should Davante Adams' target share rise because it's a playoff game, and like Aaron Rodgers will be more focused on Davante Adams than he would in a regular season game? I think that's at least possible, and we saw that from Josh Jacobs. So I just want to point that out. Also, Darren Waller made his return, only 21 snaps as he was eased back in, 2 catches, 22 yards, 0 touchdowns for Darren Waller. What'd you see out of his return? Anything else on the Raiders?
I had Darren Waller at 78% of the snaps with 9 targets.
Okay, I can double check.
Okay. All right. I just want to make sure.
You're right. I was looking at the game he left. You're right. Yep.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So, I mean, didn't play well in that particular game, but, I think that the usage there was pretty promising for him. Zay Jones, like, you have to take him seriously at this point. I've never been a fan of Zay Jones. And, that's been a profitable or successful approach for a while. But, I mean, he's playing a big role. He's riffing with Derek Carr. His target counts over his last 5 are 8, 10, 9, 7. 8, 10, 8, 9, 7. Brian Edwards' last 5 games, 5, 2, 4, 3, 5. So Zay Jones has clearly emerged as the Raiders' number 1 perimeter receiver. Deshaun Jackson is barely playing. Hunter Renfrow only had 13 yards or something in this game, but he scored 2 touchdowns, just running some brilliant routes in scoring position. He finished the season with 103 catches, over 1,000 yards, 9 touchdowns. Hunter Renfrow, one of the best slot receivers in the league. Josh Jacobs, Brandon Staley, I think is an excellent coach. I think he's got, an excellent coaching mind. But, man, you can't let your run defense get that bad. You can be giving in run defense, but it can't be that. Josh Jacobs set a career high for rushing yards in Week 18. And, all this stuff about, the timeout and everything, Brandon Staley said, I mean, I think it's a lot more simple than what people are saying. Brandon Staley calls the timeout to try to get his run defense set up. But guess what? They still can't stop the run. And Josh Jacobs, even with their run defense in there, Josh Jacobs rips off a 10-yard run, and the Raiders are like, yo, we're going to win this game. They just gave us 10 yards. That was the problem. The problem was that they gave up a 10-yard run after calling the timeout to set up their run defense. That was the problem. And it was, an execution thing. And they got to get it figured out, to some extent. There's just a cliff drop in terms of run defense that you can't fall off. And they were teetering on that cliff the entire season. And then on the most important play of the season, they gave up a 10-yard run.
Sure. And a much stiffer challenge for Josh Jacobs and this offensive line coming up against a Cincinnati defense, which I think has been underrated, for much of the year. Cincinnati defense can certainly play, and much stiffer test here coming for Josh Jacobs. New England. I thought Damian Harris was going to sit out this game, and I was wrong, because not only did Damian Harris not sit out, but he played a ton. And yeah, Ramondre got banged up. Ramondre came back in, but he missed a bunch of time. But Damian Harris still, 50% of the running back carries, 4 targets on 11 routes. They must feel pretty good about Damian Harris's hamstring. Tough ask here for the Patriots to go into Buffalo on Saturday night and win. I think they can do it. But yeah, what'd you see out of New England? They certainly tried in this game, in their Week 18 game.
Yeah. They, Ramondre Stevenson suffered that the concussion on the head injury, the suspected concussion on his first play, didn't come back until the second half.
Yeah.
So Damian Harris wound up being the lead dog. I don't know if they intended for that to be the case, but it wound up being the case. Ramondre Stevenson should be ready to go, or he will be ready to go against Buffalo in the wild card round. The 3 receiver set for the Patriots in last week's loss to Miami was Aguilar, Jacoby Myers, Kendrick Bourne. Hunter Henry ran 24 routes. Jonnu Smith only 6. Jonnu Smith was like one of the biggest free agent busts of the 2021 offseason. Hunter Henry was an excellent signing, but Jonnu Smith was not. And then Christian Barmore, who's been a stud for New England on the defensive line, injured his knee against Miami. That could be significant against Buffalo, especially if the Bills, end up running it a lot in the cold weather with, a hot Devin Singletary.
Steelers. My God, Evan, I cannot believe the Steelers in the playoffs. I can't. I can't. Ben Roethlisberger took his victory lap already. His career victory lap. Now he's got to go to Arrowhead for a playoff game. And when these two teams met earlier in the season, if I remember correctly, it was just an absolute bloodbath. Like no chance, 40-7 or something totally insane. Let me just check here real quick. Yeah, final was 36-10. Was not that close. Chiefs were up 23-10 at the half. But anyways, Ben going to Arrowhead in this spot. Obviously I think the Chiefs perimeter defense has been good, and it's just so closed in when you can't throw the ball down the field like Ben can't right now. I thought Chase Claypool, I was going to play Chase Claypool in cash. Deontay Johnson ended up getting cleared, and so I didn't play Chase Claypool, but he had a really good game. Thought he was fine, and that was good to see at least. But James Washington's going to be back, and that introduces some volatility in Chase Claypool's role. James Washington should be back. Najee Harris banged up his elbow in this game. I think he'll be fine, but we'll see on that. Anything for you on the Steelers, who, again, I just can't believe they're in the playoffs.
Yeah, they went 4-2 over their final 6 games, but they averaged under 20 points per game during that span. Thanks, NFL, for expanding the playoffs so that we can watch fucking Ben Roethlisberger again. My God. I don't know. Regarding Najee Harris, it was reported as a right elbow dislocation. That sounds like it could be problematic, but I don't know. We'll just have to see.
Obviously, tough spot for Big Ben here. All right, last team we're gonna do is the team that nobody's giving a chance. The number 1 seed, Tennessee Titans, are plus 330 just to go to the Super Bowl. The Chiefs are plus 175 to go. The Bills are plus 350. Even though the Titans only have to win 2 home games, they're plus 330. Now, they're getting a big benefit here by getting the bye. Evan talked about it before the Week 18 game. Getting a bye is huge because Derrick Henry can come back. Julio Jones can get rested. A.J. Brown's been banged up a lot. He'll be 100%. Bye is big for them. So really good win for the Titans, who needed to win the game. What did you see out of their Week 18 performance?
Yeah, and you have to give them hats off. They beat a lot of good teams this year. But they also lost to a lot of bad teams. They lost to the Jets. They lost to the Steelers in one of the nastiest games we watched all year. They lost to the Texans, and they almost lost to the Texans this past week.
Yeah.
This was a 3-point game, I believe 28-25, I think. Yeah. But it was so critical for them to get this win for all the reasons that you mentioned. And although I was probably overly critical of the Titans over the course of the year, because I just losing to the Jets and losing to the Texans is like, what the fuck is going on here, right? But I think at the end of the day, though, Mike Vrabel deserves Coach of the Year. He did the most with the least.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what his odds are. I took him at plus 330 a couple weeks ago, but I think he deserves it. I don't know if he's going to get it. Matt LaFleur would get it over him. I don't think that's right.
Yeah, no, I think Vrabel deserves it as well. I mean, really, really good job. And not only does he did the most with the least, but like, I mean, Derrick Henry, they build a whole team around Derrick Henry, then he goes down. And credit to D'Onta Foreman, who I thought played well. And D'Onta Foreman was unlucky not to have a better fantasy game. He had a touchdown called back because like an offensive lineman didn't like whisper in the ear of I was so tilted because I had D'Onta Foreman gets a touchdown called off the board because the stupid offensive lineman didn't whisper in the ref's ear that he was eligible or whatever. Anyways, I'm tilting. Yeah. So yeah, I think one question people have for fantasy, they're doing a bunch of drafts right now. Do we think Derrick Henry immediately resumes his old role when they come out of the bye in the divisional round? In other words, can we project Derrick Henry for 25 touches in his first game back? Or do you think D'Onta Foreman will mix in a little bit?
Well, I mentioned it on last week's show that Chris Mortensen on Monday Night Countdown, a little bit over like a week and a half ago, or a little bit over a week ago, said that Derrick Henry had resumed running, but not cutting. And you want to see him making cuts. I mean, that's absolutely critical for his ability to return, and certainly for his ability to return to the workload that he was seeing. So that's a little bit of a red flag. He's got time now. He had last week. He's got this week to rest it, and then they won't play until next week. So he's got some time. I think it's really hard to say right now.
Yeah, people are drafting in these fantasy playoff leagues. They're drafting Derrick Henry as if there's no question he's going to come back and be 100%. I think there's more risk there, i.e. he's not ready, i.e. he suffers a setback, i.e. they're like, oh, D'Onta Foreman's played well, let's mix him in a little bit. So to me, there's more volatility in Derrick Henry's role than I think the market is assuming. Definitely. That's my take on it for now.
Yeah, that's absolutely true.
All right. That is going to do it for this team-by-team playoff edition. Appreciate y'all being here all year for these team-by-team pods. We've had a ton of fun doing them. Hope you guys have gained some value from them. If you're not subscribed yet to ETR, we are on normal content schedule through the Super Bowl. We do have weekly and monthly options available as well. For Evan, for producer Luke, I am Adam. Good luck, everybody.